CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. RCMP and Claresholm are still trying to figure out the motive behind a triple murder-suicide that has rocked that community. A passing driver called 911 to report gunshots on Highway 2 north of the town. When police raced to the scene around 3:30 this morning, they found carnage, dead and injured people laying in the road, all victims of gunshots. And investigators now say the shooter killed himself. Kevin Rich reports.
In the early morning hours, violence on this stretch of highway. A passing driver hears gunshots before 3:30. RCMP roll up to find a Sunfire and an SUV.
Our information is right now that there was 4 people in one vehicle and 1 individual in a second vehicle.
2 men and a woman shot dead. Another man and woman suffering gunshot wounds. The third man would later die in Foothills Hospital. 4 people are dead, and police tried to piece together what happened. People along the roadside are horrified.
Pretty shocking. I've never seen anything like this. I've seen traffic accidents on the highway that have been bad, but nothing quite like this. Kind of disbelief, really.
Dean Baxter got a grim call from police officers needing his help getting both vehicles back to RCMP ident in Calgary.
RCMP phoned us this morning to let us know that we'd be transporting the vehicles, 1 or 2 vehicles, and possibly with the 1 or 2 deceased in the vehicles.
Police say they're investigating the possibility that the shooter and a woman who died on the scene were domestic partners, and that he may have run her off the road.
So when I got down here, I assumed it was an accident, and then I had one of our employees call and say that they heard it was a murder-suicide, and then I heard one of our drivers say that they heard it was a shooting.
RCMP say investigators have much more work to do before they'll know exactly what happened to cause so much tragedy on the side of the highway. Kevin Rich, CTV News, Calgary.
Now for the small town of Claresholm, today's events are shocking. Many people spent most of the day wondering what happened and worrying about it may be involving someone they know. Kayla Carr reports.
It wasn't the quiet morning the 3,300 people living in Claresholm are used to. Many of them woke up to the news that multiple people had been killed and police were treating the deaths as murder.
Pretty shocking. I've never seen anything like this. I've seen traffic accidents on the highway that have been bad, but nothing quite like this. Kind of disbelief, really.
Before RCMP released any information, many people began wandering up Highway 2 to see for themselves what was going on.
Some people thought it was an accident, and then other people were watching the news. They heard that the highway was blocked off, and a lot of concern about, is it from around here? Is there somebody involved that, maybe was local or what have you? So hopefully, how many people were involved, we don't know.
What's the town like? What usually happens here?
Not a lot. Pretty quiet. Yeah, it's a very quiet place.
As soon as the quiet town learned 4 people were dead, many residents wanted to know more. The biggest question people here have is, where are those 4 people from? They want to know if they're residents or if they were just simply passing through. Many of the people I spoke to hope they're not from Claresholm because they say this is such a tight-knit community. Their biggest concern is they may know someone involved.
I grew up here. Worry about if it's someone from here, you wouldn't wish it upon any family at all.
Well, it's kind of a little bit surprising, a little shocking that something can happen so close to home. And hopefully, the first thought is that it doesn't involve anybody you know.
As police continue to investigate, the community continues to wait for the answers they are desperately seeking. Kayla Carr, CTV News, Claresholm.
RCMP say all of the people involved were in their 20s. Mounties are in the process of notifying their families and will not be releasing any names or where they live until that is finished. To our first look at the forecast, and Dory, we've got lots of sunshine starting tomorrow.
Yeah, we really do, Jackie. We've got a nice area of high pressure that's developing. It's going to push any debris to the north, and then that's going to track through northern BC and into northern Alberta. It looks like could get a hit of some snow as we head into the weekend as well. But here in the south, other than a chance of flurry activity tonight, it looks like things are looking pretty toasty here in southern Alberta. I'll give you all the warm details coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks, Dory. A former pro wrestler and Ultimate Fighting superstar is facing charges under Alberta's Wildlife Act in Medicine Hat. Brock Lesnar was to appear in a courtroom today, along with co-accused Chad Stryker, but did not appear. Their case has now been pushed back until January the 19th. Fish and wildlife officers say the celebrity faces counts involving the improper affixation of tags, spoilage of skin and edible flies, and possession of a controlled animal. The Kainai government agreement has been rejected by the membership of the Blood Tribe. The chief and council say they're disappointed with the results of yesterday's ratification vote, but say as a result, a firm foundation has been laid for the tribe in the area of child, youth, and family services. The new agreement would have given the band jurisdiction and governance on the Blood Reserve. The Blood Tribe, the federal government, and government of Alberta reached the agreement earlier this year, but it had to be approved by band members. The agreement covered child, youth, and family services, as well as local government like elections, membership, and financial management of Blood Tribe lands. Lethbridge fire officials say keeping ahead of the fire and keeping open lines of communication were the biggest challenges in facing the November 27th wildfire. Chief Brian Cornforth updated the media this morning on what went right and what went wrong in fighting the fire. He says the fire traveled around 9 kilometers per hour, burning from the Blood Reserve to the outskirts of the city. Cornforth thanked media and staffers for getting as much information out as possible via online and conventional media, but says the information could have been made more clear, and they're working on how to do that. One idea is activating the Alberta Emergency Response System earlier.
But if it's in a critical alert, life threat alert, it will interrupt the media broadcast system. So that's one of the things we need people to make sure they follow that alert, and when it interrupts the news broadcast, stop, listen, shut off everything else, and really closely listen to the message.
Cornforth says this particular fire provided a significant challenge because it was a wind and ground speed that firefighters have never been tested by. Well, it was September 3rd when 3-year-old Keenan Hebert went missing from his Sparwood home. He was returned 4 days later, and during that time, an immense search effort was launched. Organizations that led searches were honored by RCMP today at a ceremony in that BC community. Keenan Hebert explored the fire trucks at the Sparwood Fire Hall this morning, the same ones that toured the town, sirens blaring, hoping to attract the attention of the 3-year-old boy after he went missing. Today, volunteers who searched for the child were honored by the RCMP. Members of the Hebert family were in attendance, and Keenan's father, Paul, also gave the community a very emotional thank you.
And you guys pulled together as an awesome team, and I tell you, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. My family thanks you from the bottom of my heart.
46-year-old Randall Hopley was arrested shortly after Keenan was returned to his home. He is currently in custody with a bail hearing scheduled for Monday. A Lethbridge family will be the first Canadians to represent organ donors in the Rose Parade. Jared Heidinger and his 3 young kids made a portrait of their wife and mother that will be part of the Donate Life America float. Krista Heidinger became an organ donor and tissue donor when she died 2 years ago. The portraits made entirely of organic material, including crushed flowers and sand. A few weeks ago, the Heidingers flew to California to start the project with other families of organ donors.
To recognize her, to do something that we'll remember as a family for the rest of the time. Every time the Rose Bowl parade comes on, or every time it's New Year's, we'll be able to remember that we took part in that event, and we'll always have that picture as well to remember her.
It's an awareness float around donating life. Certainly organs are the difference between life and death, but also tissues as well.
The 2012 Rose Parade is scheduled for January the 2nd, and it gets nearly 75 million viewers worldwide. Well, if you haven't heard yet, you can now check out all of our news, weather and sports online. We're on Facebook at CTV Lethbridge, but you don't have to be on Facebook to be able to watch. You can just type in CTV Lethbridge and Facebook in your search engine like Google, and you can watch our shows. Check us out. Well, on the markets today, we saw a lot of down numbers yet again. Here are the closing numbers.